Joining us now, former Speaker of the House, Newt Gingrich, is with us. How are you, sir? Good to have you back.
I'm doing well, and I think part of the reason for the great outpouring for President Bush is that he is the last of the World War II heroes, the youngest naval aviator, and I think his deep love for Barbara was a model for the whole country. So it really is, in a sense, the passing of a generation of leadership.
I think all of that's true. There's one little thing that irks me, and I bet it probably irks you as well. And I'm watching the media, and I'm watching their coverage, and frankly, people that didn't treat him well at all, they're actually, there's nothing bad they could ever say about him. And you know how he was treated in the course of his presidency. He's so out of touch, he can't even use a grocery store scanner because he doesn't know what it is. Or obviously Iran-Contra. Or, the Democrats kind of push and he tries to compromise, but he broke a campaign pledge about read my lips, no new taxes, and they bludgeoned him with that. And they're also saying, well, he's such a good man. Now they're using his demeanor, which is obviously different than President Trump's, as if, somehow 41 or 43 didn't know that presidential politics was a blood sport. After all, it was 41 that called Reaganomics voodoo economics, and the runoff or the primary between President Bush and 43 and McCain in South Carolina was about as tough as it gets. And, so this is part of politics, isn't it?
Well, part of it, of course, look, if you are a liberal and you have a chance after they die to say nice things, they did the same thing to Ronald Reagan. I mean, people who had despised Reagan for his entire career, waxed eloquent and rhapsodic about him once he died, because it gives them the veneer of being reasonable and fair. But, in both the case of President Reagan and President Bush, the same liberals did everything they could to defeat them. And I think that's just part of where we are as a country. I mean, you should never, and you don't, of course, but no one listening to us should ever kid themselves about where the left is and what the left's trying to accomplish.
Oh, they did the same thing with John McCain. I mean, and when John McCain, when it wouldn't have mattered to say nice things about him when he ran for president in '08, which, by the way, I supported him over Obama, and I was glad to. And I think I ended up being proven right how disastrous Obama's rigid ideology would be for the country and his policies would be. But same with John McCain. And look at what they did to poor Mitt Romney. Look at how they treated Reagan. Look at how they treated Bush. But you die, they may even say a nice thing or two about you or me. But who knows? They're not saying it now.
I wouldn't go overboard. And I'm not telling my children. I'm not children to wait in any expectation. But no, but Senator McCain is a great example because Senator McCain got great press until he got the nomination, and then for 4 or 5 months, and I know he was just deeply hurt and frustrated because for 4 or 5 months, the left-wing media went after him and sided with Obama, and he thought these had all been his friends, and then it didn't work. They ended up doing everything they could to defeat him. Yeah, and I think that's just part of it, and I also do think. I mean, let's be clear. As much as you and I think that President Trump is a historic figure and is changing the country, from the standpoint of the elites, the country club set, President George H.W. Bush was just a kinder and milder and nicer person. He fit naturally into that group.
Hey, look, he deserves all the credit. The Reaganomics, which he did call voodoo economics in the primary, but you know what? They got along great. The team of Reagan and Bush 41 was an amazing team. And you know what? All the things that we love. We cut taxes. 21 million new jobs were created. Longest period of peacetime economic growth. And you want to talk about inheriting a bad economy. Nobody inherited a worse economy than Ronald Reagan and George Bush. But when it came time to take the gloves off and bludgeon George Herbert Walker Bush, some of the people saying nice things today were nowhere to be found. They wanted him out then, just like they want Trump out now.
Yeah. By the way, that reminds me, one of the interesting side notes of where we are today. People on the left talk about, Trump not being popular. He's at about 44% approval. despite 2 years of overwhelmingly negative press coverage. Ronald Reagan, in January of 1983, was at 35% approval, and the darling of the left, President Macron of France, is currently at 26% approval. Mm-hmm. So it just goes to show you, sometimes the people see past the media.
Well, and look, there's sometimes the right people, right place, right time. I mean, I'm watching people now, this Never Trumper crowd in particular, that they're with the leftists, they're with Schumer, they're with Pelosi, they're with, Maxine and Peach 45 and get in their faces and follow them in the grocery stores, et cetera. And I'm listening to them and I'm like, these are people that wrote for longer than I've even been on radio, which is now my 30th year, about the need for lower taxes. Well, that's Trump. Conservative justices, originalists, that's Trump. Energy independence, that's Trump. Securing our borders, that's Trump. All of these accomplishments that he's had that you wrote about, chronicled really well in your book. And not only that, peace through strength, that's Trump. Look at this.
Despite everything they're trying to do with Mueller, notice who's been tougher with Putin, Trump or Obama. And it's clearly Trump.
Yeah.
And Trump has been much tougher with Putin than anybody else. And gets zero credit for it from the left.
What do you think of the president? Now, the two things that I think happened that nobody's paying any attention to. One is the president was able to extract a number of concessions from the Chinese in exchange for not imposing new tariffs on Chinese goods, a major agreement while meeting with the world's leaders at the G20 in Argentina. But they spoke for 2.5 hours, longer than previously scheduled. Amazing and productive is how it was described. And immediately China began buying more agricultural products from America, along with the pledge to purchase more industrial and energy products. And also it looks like a report that, the Trump auto tariff tweet lifts the stocks, and Beijing's been silent. But, we have a better deal with our European allies. We have a better deal with NATO. People are now paying more of their fair share. We have a better deal with Canada and Mexico. Now a better deal with China. Oh, and by the way, the president's being tough with Iran. He's being tough with everybody in the Middle East, moving the embassy to Jerusalem. North Korea's obviously moved in quite a big direction, and you're right about Russia. This is unprecedented movement by, somebody that's a disruptor, a little bit louder and breaks some dishes. So what? Well,
no, not so what. That technique is working. Look, if he had not been as tough as he was with Kim Jong-il, I am confident that we would not be seeing any movement. If he hadn't been prepared, and this is very much the Trump model, if you read his book, The Art of the Deal, the Trump model is to be personally friendly while being very tough in negotiations and to keep the two separate. So he and Xi Jinping, I think, have actually developed a reasonably good personal relationship. Well, he has said to him, look, you don't cut a deal. I'm just going to have to get tougher and tougher because I represent America. And you have been ripping us off. And I think it was a clear signal that Xi Jinping decided it was very much not to their interest to get involved in a head-on, knockdown, drag-out fight with the United States.
I think that Trump's proven he's willing to engage in the fight. And if he didn't have believability, then there's no way NATO is going to step up and pay their fair share. We're paying 72 cents of every dollar, and countries like Germany are making Putin rich again with energy deals. That's ridiculous.
Right. Remember also, the book he wrote was The Art of the Deal, not The Art of the Fight. He doesn't start a fight to have a fight. He starts a fight to move you to a position where you're going to get a better deal.
But, but that's the whole thing. I've told many of my conservative friends was so worried about trade issues with Donald Trump. I said, he doesn't want a trade war. He doesn't want tariffs. What he wants is freer, fairer trade. And if you don't convince the people that you're negotiating with that you're going to walk, what's going to happen? They're never going to give in. And then the bad deals that have been accumulating over the years that cost the American taxpayers billions of dollars and jobs and opportunities, guess what? Now we're getting them back. Now we have better trade deals. Now they're freer and fairer.
No American president has negotiated as many economic deals in as many different countries as Trump did while he was a businessman.
Mm-hmm.
That's why you see Trump Towers in places like Panama City. We saw them, they're building a new Trump Tower down in Uruguay, which I think is now Eric's project. But, so this is a guy who understands that you have to understand the country you're negotiating with, you have to understand the local system, and you got to figure out a deal that makes mutual profit, because if you don't both gain something, in the long run, it's a bad deal.
It's got to be win-win.
So,
agree.
Yeah.
Let me ask you about. Yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead. No.
You're watching the issue of Robert Mueller. We're going to have a lot of news at the top, later on in the program today, but you have some updates. One article came out today and actually suggesting that there's no end in sight. The Cohn and Manafort developments, that's going to keep Mueller's probe going deep into 2019, and I'm thinking, you got to be kidding me.
No.
That there's never going to be, and now
I am writing a paper. This came out of doing your TV show the other night, and I was this was right after the Cohen, news, and I was trying to figure out how to put this in context because it is so nutty. And I finally concluded, and I'm writing a paper, that we should rename this the Mueller Destroy Trump Project. This is not an investigation. This has nothing to do with an investigation. This is Mueller doing everything he can to destroy the president of the United States. And it's one of the reasons I made the point that Trump is more popular today than Reagan was at this point, and he is more popular today than Macron of France, and that there's no legitimate basis.
By the way, the Harris poll had him at 48% the other day, last week.
Okay. So here you have a guy who won constitutionally. 48% of the country favors him despite 2 years of unending negative press. And Mueller has taken it upon himself as the agent of the establishment to destroy him. And there was a column written by somebody at the Post that had absolutely captured it when they pointed out that Trump thought he was going to Buenos Aires to a really positive event, and that Mueller messed it up. And this person said, Mueller does this over and over again deliberately. Well, that is such a total violation of our entire system. And by what right does this guy go out of his to try to destroy the President of the United States?
Well, look, I think and maybe there's only a handful of us that have seen through Mueller and his team from the get-go. I remember back a year ago, it was, no, it's going to all be over right after Thanksgiving. It's done. Right after Christmas. Right after the New Year. Right after March. Right after April. Right after the 4th. Right. And I look at the team he hired. No, it's not. And I don't see anything that warrants the continuation of this at all.
And when he was first appointed, I tweeted a very positive tweet based on his background and his record. And then I watched him hire people like Weissman, and every single person he hired was a left-wing cutthroat prosecutor. And I began to realize this guy was building a hunting party if anybody who doesn't believe me, read Sidney Powell's amazing book on License to Lie about the Justice Department.
Scary.
And these guys, Weissman was described by one of the Justice Department people as a terror. And this was back involving a different case, the Arthur Anderson case, where the Supreme Court by 9-0 repudiated the prosecution, but in the process they had destroyed the company and put 85,000 people out of work.
All true.
And these are the kind of guys we're dealing with. And I think I queued off of two people, Alan Dershowitz, the Harvard Law professor, and Andy McCarthy, the former prosecutor for the Justice Department. And they both have been saying over and over again, where's the underlying crime? I mean, if you look at the things that Cohen lied about, and he shouldn't lie, and it's perfectly appropriate to punish people who lie to Congress or who lie under oath. So I'm not defending him at all. When you look at the underlying question, nothing that has been alleged about Trump was illegal.
I got to let it go there, Mr. Speaker. Thank you. We appreciate your time as usual. Well said.